Mist hung low over the water like a silver blanket, soft and quiet. The sun had barely risen above the pines surrounding the shoreline, painting everything gold. I stood on my private dock with a mug of coffee in one hand and the keys to my late father's restored fishing boat in the other. This lake had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather bought the land when nobody wanted it, marshy edges, thick woods, and no paved roads for miles. He dug the basin, redirected a small natural stream, and turned it into the clearest private lake in the county. My father expanded the shoreline, reinforced the banks, and registered every legal inch of water rights. And yes, every single drop of that water was legally mine. That part mattered, because 6 months earlier, developers built a luxury neighborhood called Silver Pines Estates, right up against my southern boundary. Big gates, big promises, bigger egos, and of course, ennui. At first, they were polite. Overly polite. The kind of polite that feels like a warning disguised as a smile. They asked if residents could occasionally enjoy the scenic lake views. I said views were fine. The water wasn't public. Then they asked for limited recreational access. I said no. Then they started acting like the lake already belonged to them. Residents began walking onto my shoreline, by mistake. Kayaks appeared on the water one weekend. Someone even installed a wooden sign near my boundary. Private marina access. Silver Pines residents only. On my property. I removed it, quietly. That's when the letters began. Violation notices. Community integration concerns. Shared environmental stewardship requests. And my favorite, a demand that I coordinate water usage with the HOA board. Coordinate. My own lake. I ignored them. Until the morning everything escalated. I backed the trailer down my private ramp and eased the boat into the water. The engine purred like it had been waiting years for this moment. I untied the rope, stepped aboard, and pushed off. 10 seconds later, I heard shouting. 3 HOA board members marched down the shoreline wearing matching polos like a suburban militia. At their center was the president, Linda Carver, a woman whose permanent expression suggested she had never once been told no in her life. She cupped her hands and yelled across the water. You cannot launch watercraft here without HOA authorization. I laughed. Actually laughed. This is my lake. She held up a folder thick with papers. This water body falls under community environmental jurisdiction. That sentence didn't even make legal sense. I started the engine. She pulled out her phone. We are calling the police. And she did. 2 patrol cars arrived within minutes. Small town deputies. They stepped out looking confused, not aggressive. Linda met them halfway, pointing dramatically at my boat. He's trespassing on community water. One deputy turned to me. Sir, do you own this property? I handed him a laminated document I always kept on board. Full property deed, water rights certificate, and county registration. He read it slowly. Then again. Then he walked back to Linda. Ma'am, he said carefully, this lake is privately owned. Her smile didn't break. It sharpened. We dispute that claim. The second deputy asked, do you have documentation? She handed over HOA bylaws. They flipped through them. Silence stretched across the shoreline. Finally, the first deputy spoke the words that changed everything. These bylaws do not grant ownership of external water sources. Linda's face tightened. But we have a marina development permit. That was new. A marina. On whose shoreline? The deputies exchanged looks. One radioed dispatch for permit records. While they waited, I idled my boat. In the water, watching the scene unfold. 10 minutes later, the radio crackled. Permit confirmed. Silver Pines Estates Marina Project, approved. Location. South Shore Parcel 47B. Parcel 47B. My south shoreline. The deputies turned slowly toward me. Sir, are you aware a marina is being built on your property? I wasn't, but suddenly everything made sense. The sign, the confidence, the entitlement. They hadn't asked for access because they planned to take it. I pulled my boat back to the dock and stepped onto land. Deputy, I said calmly, who issued the permit? County Development Office. I nodded once. Then I made a phone call. My lawyer answered on the second ring. She didn't ask questions. She already knew the history. Within minutes, she was contacting the county. Turns out, The HOA submitted development documents claiming shoreline access through community-controlled water. They didn't submit my ownership records. And the county approved it without verifying land title. Clerical negligence. Legally fatal. But here's where the story turns. Because permits can be revoked, ownership transfers, however, cannot be undone so easily. Silver Pines had already poured concrete pilings into the south shoreline. They had installed half a floating dock. They had invested nearly $1.8 million into construction on land they did not own. That's when my lawyer made the call that flipped the boardroom tables. Under state property law, unauthorized permanent improvements on private land can be claimed by the landowner, or removed at the builder's expense. They had two choices: remove the marina, or negotiate purchase of shoreline rights. They chose negotiation. Bad choice. Because they came in arrogant. They offered me a community goodwill payment. I countered with a number so high their attorney choked on his coffee. They refused, so we prepared formal removal orders. Construction halted immediately. Residents panicked. Property values dipped overnight. 3 days later, the HOA requested a new meeting. This time, they came quieter. Desperate has a sound. It's softer than arrogance. They needed lake access to justify home prices. Without it, half their sales contracts would collapse. So I made a different offer. I would not sell shoreline rights. I would buy their marina project. All of it: permit, construction, infrastructure, liability. They stared at me like I had suggested buying the moon. But financially, they were trapped. Loans had been issued. Contractors demanded payment. Delays were bleeding money daily. And I had something they didn't: time. We closed the deal within a week. 10 minutes after they called the cops on me. I owned their marina. The first official rule posted at the entrance read: private marina. Lake owner access only. Residents could apply for usage permits at premium rates, with strict behavioral policies. And yes, HOA board members were denied priority access. Linda resigned 2 weeks later. The deputies who responded that morning returned once more, not for conflict, but for the ribbon cutting. Small town. Everyone enjoys poetic justice. As I launched my boat from the newly completed marina, now legally and visibly mine, the water was as calm as it had been that first morning. Only now, the shoreline was quiet. No shouting, no folders, no calls to the police. Just wind across the surface of a lake that had never belonged to anyone else. And finally, everyone understood that,